Hi everybody, it's good to be back again. This week was a very difficult one for us here in Israel. First of all, we had a terrible tragedy a couple of days ago where a woman who lives nearby in a nearby community dropped off her child at the kindergarten, as she does every day, and coming out of the Itamar Junction, she didn't pay attention apparently to a bus that was driving down the road, and the bus hit her car and she turned over. Unfortunately, she was killed. 24-year-old woman, a very, very righteous, special person. It was very painful, of course, for the entire area itself. And of course, we know what happened yesterday, the terrible, terrible fire in the Carmel and the terrible tragedy, over 40 people killed. Israel's been going through a very difficult time, and there's no words to describe the terrible drought situation. 8 months we haven't had any rain, and I don't remember being in Israel here for 27 years. It is very, very difficult to recall a winter or a fall like this that we haven't had any rain, and this is really, really very, very serious situation where it requires all our friends, all those who really want to see a big change, to go pray, and only that can make a big difference here is really prayer in Israel. The rain is so dependent upon our prayers. I mean, that doesn't work like it works in other countries in the world. And when the Jewish people are praying and when they're close to Hashem, it says in Deuteronomy, and God will give us the rain in its time. This week's portion, I want to talk about one principle that we can learn out from this week's portion and reflect again on what's happening now. In this week's portion, we learn about how the brothers, after selling Joseph down to Egypt, and now there's a famine in the land, and Jacob sends the brothers to go out and to purchase grain for the family. And then, of course, Yosef meet up with Yosef, and Joseph recognizes them, and they don't recognize who he is. And again, then he tells them to go back home and bring his younger brothers the proof that this is really, they're not really spies, etc. And finally, when the brothers, realize what happened and why this happened to them, this situation where they got themselves into trouble now, and Yosef, of course, puts his goblet inside the saddlebag, and claiming that they stole his goblet. This whole situation, the brothers immediately, instead of saying, "Why? Okay, this is a chance event, the things that are taking place and happening to us," they immediately take responsibility over the terrible things that happened to them and say, "Listen, this is because of the way we behaved. We sold our brother. We didn't think about our brother's welfare, and now look what kind of trouble we're in now." So this is a punishment from God for the terrible things that we did, or the terrible thing that we did to our brother. This lesson itself, for those to consider the things that happen to them, not as chance events, or not as things that just can happen, just chancefully or without any reason behind them, but a person who reflects that everything that happens to them in this world as something directly, as we say, divine providence. Nothing happens for nothing. There's a reason behind it. And if we can understand that and take it in a personal lesson from that and try to rectify ourselves because of that, that makes us much greater than others who try to push away these things and say, okay, this happens because, for chance, so there's no reason. These are natural things that happen, there's tragedies that happen naturally. No, a person has to always do something they say in Hebrew is called a cheshbon nefesh, a reflection, a self-reflection, to say what's happening to us is because of our behavior. God does not want to, God forbid, bring tragedy and difficult things over his people that he loves and over the nations of the world. Hashem loves the world. He created us, and of course he doesn't want to see bad things happen. The bad things happen in this world are always brought about because of only one reason, because of us, because of our deeds. And this is a reflection that we have to make. And again, if we look right now, this terrible tragedy, getting back to the tragedies in the Carmel Mountains and in the forest that's burning down, their communities have to be evacuated, and those who lost their lives. We're not saying that, God forbid, those people that this terrible tragedy happened to them, because of that happened to them, it means these people did something very serious. I mean, we're not going to talk that way as well. And why not? Because there's a special concept in Judaism called Kol Yisrael Arivim Zeh. All of Israel is responsible for one another, which means sometimes when a person does something wrong in his own little environment, his own little area, he could affect someone else in a different part of the country, in different area itself. It doesn't. We all connected as one organism, just like a person. If he can sometimes he can hurt his leg, but it affects his whole body. Hurt his leg, he can't walk now. He sits down. Every limb in our body is connected. The same way, anything that's happening in Israel as a whole, especially by Israeli leaders, can easily affect the country of Israel. And unfortunately, innocent people are taken up and hurt. And that's something that we really can't understand. But this is in truth. This is what happens. And in Israel, unfortunately, since the throwing out and the expulsion of Jews from Gush Katif, 8,000 Jews lost their homes. Israel has not been the same since that terrible tragedy. Afterwards, the Second Lebanese War, and of course the terrible drought situations are getting worse and worse, with no rain coming down. And of course, the whole way the world's looking at Israel today. Unfortunately, Israel has been going through a very, very hard time. And God is telling us and demanding from us that we reflect upon our ways. And it begins, of course, with the leaders. But it's not only the leaders of Israel, because the leaders are also a description of what the people are at, where they're at. The people are on a different stage, and the leaders would be also differently as well. So every one of us have to rectify, and those who wear kippahs on the head, those who don't wear kippahs on the head, everyone has to rectify themselves. We're not looking now to point out, you do this and you do that. Every one of us has to take upon ourselves to be better people, to examine our deeds. Make a list before you go to sleep at night and say, okay, what did I do today? How can I improve myself? How can I make myself better? And if we all the Jewish people take upon themselves, including our leaders, to reflect and make a change, the situation will definitely reverse itself again. As we see the whole story of Joseph and his brothers, we see in the end, Joseph reveals himself to the brothers, and the famine, of course, they all survived the famine and the difficult times, and the good years come, and the good years will come, just as God promises us many times over. That, of course, just as we read in this week's Haftarah, in the prophet we read this week for Hanukkah, we read about Orli v'simchi bat Zion, rejoice and be happy, the daughter of Zion. And this is again, we are waiting for those beautiful words to come true again, and hopefully very soon we will see that. So you have a wonderful Hanukkah, and we'll see you guys soon. Leigh and I are going to be away for next week, so we will return to a lesson. The next lesson will be when we return from our trip to the States. So we'll see each other soon. Bye bye.